So we begin with Bottle Rocket, which is based on a short film of the same name from a few years before, with the same cast and similar story. Bottle Rocket begins in a mental health facility, though one that seems to bear considerably more resemblance to some sort of resort full of young and beautiful people than a medical institution. Here we meet our heroes, Anthony, played by Luke Wilson, and Dignan, played by Owen Wilson, who are about to leave. Not by the front door, mind you, though that option is open to them, but out of the window and over the wall because, despite this being a voluntary facility, Dignan has his heart set on a daring escape. Dignan also has a meticulously, if naively constructed, 75-year plan for their future, which begins with becoming criminals, going on the lam, through various more stages before going straight and creating legitimate businesses. While Anthony is depressive and struggles to see where he fits into the world, Dignan is more of a dreamer who prefers not to let such petty considerations as reality get in the way. After recruiting their friend Bob, played by Robert Musgrave, key characteristic, has a car, to join their crew, they rob a bookshop and skedaddle, holing up in a motel elsewhere in Texas. There Anthony meets immigrant maid Ines. What part of Mexico are you from? Paraguay. And falls in love. This disrupts Anthony and Dignan's plans and threatens to damage their friendship, and indeed the two separate for a while, before reuniting to work a real job for a very real criminal in the form of James Caan's Mr. Henry. Though Rushmore had been in the works for years before this, Bottle Rocket was Wes Anderson's feature debut, and though it received critical acclaim, flopped commercially, and could well have ended his career. It certainly nearly ended Owen Wilson's, who was so disheartened by the failure that he reportedly nearly gave up on acting to join the Marines. And that would have been a pity for so many reasons, most particularly because of his frequent collaborations with Anderson. It also would have been a shame because this is a good film. As an aside, I wonder how much harm is done to this sweet and good-natured comedy, commercially I mean, by a harsh 15 rating here and an R in the US, both of which seem entirely unnecessary. Though, perhaps I will save another rant on the idiocies of rating systems which punish bad language more harshly than violence for another day. I'm sure you could all stand to wait. Bottle Rocket, though only runs to 91 minutes, has a low-key, meandering nature that plays to the strengths of its Texas setting. Its cast, it's quite a gift that Owen Wilson has that means that he can do meandering at the same time as his trademark, energetic, slightly manic, isn't everything amazing style. Mm-hmm. And its plot, where nothing much happens because the characters want to do only as much as they need to do in order to do as little as they can. It has some, although not a lot, of the trademark style that would define Anderson's work in the future, but you can see its beginnings here quite clearly. Where Bottle Rocket could suffer, I think, for some viewers, is that it is so clearly dependent on real life, by which I mean the shared history and friendships of co-writers Anderson and Owen Wilson and their families. It relies on the camaraderie between the Wilson brothers. Older brother Andrew is also present as Bob's sibling, Future Man, and the friendship and understanding between Owen and Wes Anderson. The two met while they were both studying at the University of Texas at Austin, and they lived together, along with the two other Wilson brothers and lifelong friend Robert Musgrave, in a Dallas apartment. But what this produced is easily watchable performances and some excellent, witty and very funny dialogue, as well as the origins of the style and composition which has come to define Anderson's work. Bottle Rocket marked Anderson's first collaboration, and perhaps the most important regular collaboration he has had, even more so than Bill Murray or Owen Wilson, with cinematographer Robert D. Yeoman. Anderson and Yeoman worked so well together and had such a mutual understanding. Yeoman has been the DP on all of Anderson's live-action films. While there are, perhaps, moments that feel like private jokes, for me it all pretty much works, and I find this a charming, very funny and thoroughly entertaining film. It's an impressive start.
Yeah, I think even this early stage you sort of see some of what you'd later go on to describe as Anderson-y traits. The cinematography, to a degree, but certainly in the dialogue, it's whether that's a byproduct of just Owen Wilson and the kind of family relationship he has, I'm not sure, but a lot of the way that that's written and a lot of the cadence of it, I think works quite well. I think there's a lot of things in Wes Anderson films in general where the dialogue is funny, even when they're not really saying anything particularly funny. It's got a very interesting cadence, I find, of the way that his dialogue is delivered, where it sounds like jokes even when it isn't jokes.
Yeah, there's an example of dialogue I picked from this film that is spot on from what you're saying, or at least to me, Scott. Because you have the stuff that's more obviously a joke. Like when Dignan's trying to get Anthony into joining Mr. Henry's crew and to do the job, and he says, here are just a few of the key ingredients: dynamite, pole vaulting, laughing gas choppers. Can you see how incredible this is going to be? Hang gliding, come on. Right? But one of the biggest laughs the film gave me is a thing that feels, it's like you say, it's not necessarily meant to be said as a joke, but it's delivered, or it's not delivered like a joke, but it sounds like one.
Yeah.
Which is when Anthony's lying beside the pool at Bob's house and he's depressed, and he says, one morning, over at Elizabeth's beach house, she asked me if I'd rather go water skiing or lay out. And I realised that not only did I not want to answer that question, but I never wanted to answer another water sports question or see any of these people again for the rest of my life. And that seems to be exactly the kind of thing you're saying too. It's that that kind of dialogue and that delivery as well.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, a setup that sort of has become a punchline by the end of it without actually turning into a punchline.
Yes.
So you have that. You have, to a degree, I suppose they're not actually family in terms of the characters, but the relationships between family units, if you like, if you want to call their friendships and their relationships.
Yeah.
The kind of really close bonds of long-term friendships that I struggle to say analysed. It's more looked at. Perhaps another concern I have with Wes Anderson is he's not one for putting a lot of politics in his films or really any meaning of any obvious nature. You can plumb around in it and dig up a few things and see where it's related to and how it sort of reflects your own experience, and it can make you reflect on things. But Anderson himself is not really trying to direct you in any particular way with it, and that's perhaps what you'd see in Bottle Rocket. It was an enjoyable film, and it's. If I came to this first, I would probably be as much a fan of Wes Anderson as I was had I came to Rushmore first. It's certainly well worth watching for anyone with a passing familiarity with his work. It may even be the best starting point. It's probably the least the least unconventional or most conventional, whatever way you want to parse that.
It's the most conventional Wes Anderson film, while still feeling like a Wes Anderson film, but you can see that he's not quite got his... It's maybe a confidence thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just finding his feet in the film business, but it's not full of the Anderson hallmarks. But it's still just a very well-produced film. It's very funny, very entertaining. But yes, in terms of Anderson style, Rushmore probably is your better entry point. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly one you'd want to add because it's just a fun film.
Yeah, I definitely regret having waited for so long to actually watch it. So yeah, it's certainly been a very enjoyable film and one that I could highly recommend to anybody.
Yes, just a rather timely aside, which was just serendipitous. On the most recent episode of The Magic Lantern, their friends Cole and Erica's recommendation for her film was Bottle Rocket. So there are other people out there with fine taste. I don't have much more to say about it because there's not a lot of content in it. And while other films, say, Anderson doesn't necessarily give you answers, but there's certainly a lot of themes running deep in them. There's not so much in this. It's a much lighter. It sounds like I'm trying to undersell it, and it's not quite what I mean, but it's not quite so full, this film. It is just a lighter confection.
It's not a film, along with a lot of Anderson's films, that he's not presenting you with any hard challenges that you must immediately answer.
No.
Here's some things you can reflect on at your convenience. He's a much more polite filmmaker in that regard.
Yeah. But it does have like that kind of final, sad, melancholy note in it that so much of his films have, which, when you've watched this many in such a short space of time as I have, kind of become wearing actually, which is the only downside I've had to revisiting all of these, or visiting for the first time all of these Wes Anderson films, is that there's so often that kind of final melancholy note, and I'm like, oh God, it's too much, please stop now. But, most people don't watch 9 films in 3 days, so I've caused this problem for myself because I'm a professional level procrastinator. There are only a couple of things I wanted to mention about this. It also amuses me. The proclaimers keep popping up in the most unexpected of places.
You can never truly expect the Proclaimers, so...
I mean, they are like the musical Spanish Inquisition from Monty Python, aren't they?
Yeah.
Never expect Proclaimer Inquisition. The Proclaimers popping up was unexpected. And can I just point out how wonderfully ridiculous James Caan looks in a kimono, ponytail, socks and sandals?
Yeah.
Because I think the first time that I saw James Caan was in The Godfather. So your first impression of an actor tends to stick.
Yeah.
Then you see him in Bottle Rocket. It's like, yeah, that's quite different. He does not look quite so dignified there or scary.